The reflection in the bathroom mirror showed more than just Sophia Winter's tired face. The deep circles under her eyes told stories she'd rather forget, but the cheerful sounds coming from the next room were her daily reminder that every sacrifice had been worth it. Her twins, Aurora and Phoenix, just turned 4, were her anchor in reality and her bridge to a future she was struggling to build. "Mommy, Phoenix got my unicorn again." Aurora's voice echoed down the corridor of the small apartment. Sophia took a deep breath, adjusted her uniform from the cafe where she worked, and walked to the children's room. "Phoenix, remember what we talked about respecting your sister's toys?" The boy, with his brown curls identical to his sister's, lowered his eyes. "But I just wanted it to fly a bit. There are so many other toys to make fly, my love." Sophia knelt down between the two of them, her heart squeezing as she saw how much they resembled Ricardo. But there, at that moment, she saw only the innocence she needed to protect. "How about we make a deal, Phoenix? You can borrow the unicorn if you ask nicely. And Aurora, you can share for a few minutes. What do you think?" The children exchanged hesitant glances before smiling and nodding. This was how Sophia led her life now, negotiating small peace, building bridges where before there had only been walls. Mrs. Martinez, the elderly neighbor who looked after the children while Sophia worked, arrived punctually at 6:30. "Buenos dias, dear. Don't worry. The children will be well looked after as always." "Thank you, Mrs. Martinez. I don't know what I'd do without you." Sophia hugged her children, breathing in the scent of children's shampoo. "Mommy will be back soon, my loves. Be good." In the building's broken elevator, as she walked down the 5 floors, Sophia allowed her mind to wander back 3 years. The night she ran away was still vivid in her memory. The sound of the door slamming, the headlights of the cars on the highway, the rain mixing with her tears as she drove aimlessly, 6 months pregnant. Magnolia's Coffee, where she had worked for 2 years, was a 20-minute walk away. Sophia cherished this solitary moment, using it to organize her thoughts and plan her future. She needed another job to pay for the children's school next year, but she was already working 2 jobs. The bills were piling up and Ricardo's fear of meeting them never diminished. "Winters, you're 5 minutes late." The shrill voice of Beverly, the manager, cut through her thoughts as soon as she entered the back door. "Sorry, Beverly. The elevator. Always the same excuse. Look, you're a good employee, but I need consistency. Today is packed, and we have that corporate event at 9. Sophia tied her apron with trembling fingers, swallowing her frustration. Each criticism reminded her of Ricardo's voice, diminishing her, making her doubt herself. But she wasn't that woman anymore. She had learned to defend herself, even if silently. The next few hours were a blur of coffee orders, forced smiles, and heavy trays. Sophia moved on autopilot, her mind divided between the worries of the present and the ghosts of the past. Then he walked in. The tall man with the impeccable suit and stern expression didn't look like he belonged in that unpretentious environment. His deep blue eyes carried a sadness that Sophia recognized immediately. It was the same look she saw in her mirror every morning. "A double Americano, no sugar," he ordered, his deep voice contrasting with the cheerful buzz of the cafe. That's when Beverly bumped into a novice waitress, knocking over an entire tray of dishes. The crash of crashing dishes made Sophia freeze, her body instantly reacting to the noise as it had to the days with Ricardo. But this time, instead of cringing, she moved quickly to help. "Don't touch anything," Beverly shouted at the crying waitress. "That'll come out of your paycheck." "It was an accident," Sophia found herself saying, her voice firmer than she expected. "Everyone makes mistakes at first." The silence that followed was deafening. Beverly stared at her, dumbfounded by her insubordination, while the man in the suit watched the scene with renewed interest. "Ms. Winters, in my office." Now, Beverly spun on her heels, making her fury clear. Sophia felt her stomach sink. She couldn't lose this job. Not now. But she couldn't stay silent and watch someone being humiliated. Not after everything she'd been through. The man in the suit snorted, attracting everyone's attention. "I believe this employee has demonstrated exactly the kind of leadership I'm looking for in my new project." He addressed Sophia directly. "I'm Leonardo Blackwood. Can we talk when your shift is over?" Sophia felt the weight of dozens of eyes on her, including Beverly's, now more calculating than furious. Her instincts screamed at her to refuse, to stay invisible and safe, but something in Leonardo's gaze, perhaps the same pain she carried, made her nod slightly. "At 2, she replied. returning to work with her heart racing, unaware that this moment would change her life forever. The rest of the shift passed like a fever dream, with Sophia torn between the fear of the unknown and the timid hope of an opportunity for change. As she cleared the tables, her mind kept going back to Aurora and Phoenix, reminding her that every decision she made affected not only her life, but also the future of her little warriors. The clock was exactly 2 o'clock when Sophia walked out of the back door of Magnolia's Coffee. Leonardo Blackwood was waiting for her, leaning back in a black Audi, his imposing figure contrasting with the simplicity of the alleyway. "Miss Winters," he greeted her with a nod. "Thank you for allowing me a few minutes." Sophia adjusted the worn bag on her shoulder, keeping a calculated distance. Years of abuse had sharpened her instincts. "Mr. Blackwood, with all due respect, I need to pick up my children in an hour." A flash of something, perhaps understanding, crossed Leonardo's face. "There's a quiet restaurant 2 blocks away. We can talk there, in public." The suggestion showed a sensitivity that surprised her. Sophia nodded and they walked in silence to an elegant bistro called Le Petit Jardin. The maître d'hôtel led them to a discreet table that was clearly visible from the street. "Order what you like," Leonardo said after they had settled down. "Lunch is on me." Sophia chose a simple salad while watching the man in front of her. In the natural light, the worry lines on his face seemed deeper, and a golden ring on his right hand occasionally caught the sunlight. "Ms. Winters, I'm the director of Blackwood Enterprises," he began, after taking their orders. "This morning, I witnessed something rare, moral courage. You stood up for someone more vulnerable, even at the risk of losing your job." "I only did what was right," Sophia replied, her fingers playing nervously with her napkin. "I've been in that girl's shoes." Leonardo leaned forward slightly. "That's exactly the kind of integrity I'm looking for. I'm starting a social project, a foundation to help women in vulnerable situations. I need someone who truly understands these realities." The waiter brought their drinks, sparkling water for him, lemonade for her. Sophia took a sip, trying to organize her thoughts. "What exactly would my job be?" she asked cautiously. "Social projects coordinator. You would work directly with me, helping to structure support programs, identify real needs and ensure that resources reach those who really need them." He paused. "The starting salary would be $75,000 a year, with full benefits, including family health insurance." Sophia almost choked on her lemonade. It was more money than she would get in 5 years at the cafe. "Why me?" Her voice came out lower than she intended. "I don't have the proper training, corporate experience. I have PhDs working for me." "Sophia." It was the first time he'd used his first name, and something in his voice changed. "What I need is someone who really understands what it's like to be on the other side. Someone who doesn't see numbers, but people." Lunch arrived, and Sophia took a moment to process the proposal. It was tempting, absurdly tempting. It would mean private school for the children, a better apartment, financial security. But years with Ricardo had taught her that very good offers often hid traps. "Mr. Blackwood." "Leonardo, please." "Leonardo," she corrected. "I appreciate the offer, but I have to be honest. I'm a single mother of 4-year-old twins. I have got complications in my past. I can't commit to something that could destabilize their lives." He watched her for a moment, his blue eyes intense but gentle. "I understand your concerns. That's why I propose a 3-month trial period. You keep your job at the cafe, work part-time with us, get to know the team and the project. If you don't feel comfortable, Source will part company with no hard feelings." Sophia cut a piece of her salad, buying time. "Where would the work be?" "At the moment, we're operating from my personal office, attached to my home in Riverside Heights. It's a separate structure, with an independent entrance and its own staff." Riverside Heights, the most exclusive neighborhood in the city. Sophia felt an involuntary shiver. "I need to think about it. Consult a few people." "Naturally." Leonardo took out a business card from his inside jacket pocket. "My personal contacts are here. Take your time," but he hesitated for the first time since they started talking. "There's something about you, Sophia. Something my project desperately needs." Lunch ended with polite promises of future contact. As she walked to pick up the children, Sophia held the card as if it were both a lifeline and a ticking time bomb. Mrs. Martinez greeted her with a knowing smile. "Something's happened, dear. Your eyes look different." Sophia watched Aurora and Phoenix playing in the living room, oblivious to the complexities of the adult world. "An opportunity," Mrs. Martinez. But I don't know if it's safe. The elderly woman took her wrinkled hands between hers. La vida es un riesgo, mi amor. Sometimes we need to take a leap of faith. That night, after putting the children to bed, Sophia stared at Leonardo Blackwood's card for hours. Her mind alternated between hope and fear, possibilities and risks. At some point, she fell asleep on the worn-out sofa, dreaming of elegant offices and shadows of the past that refused to disappear completely. What she didn't know was that, at that very moment, Leonardo was in his library in Riverside Heights, gazing at a photo of a smiling woman in a silver frame, whispering, "Maybe you were right, Claire. Maybe there's still room for redemption." The first morning that Sophia drove through the imposing gates of Riverside Heights, fall was painting the trees in shades of amber and red. Her 2010 Toyota Corolla, with its paintwork peeling, seemed out of place among the majestic mansions that rose up on either side of the street. "Number 1857, she muttered to herself, slowing down when she spotted the Blackwood estate. The GPS didn't do justice to reality. The Victorian mansion, with its turrets and arched windows, looked like something out of a period movie. Following Leonardo's instructions, Sophia went around the main house until she found a side path that led to a separate structure, the foundation's office. The two-story building, although smaller than the mansion, retained the same architectural elegance. "You can do it," she whispered to her reflection in the rearview mirror, adjusting the blazer she had bought in a department store the day before. It was her first attempt at looking executive, and she still felt like a child wearing adult clothes. A middle-aged woman, her gray hair perfectly arranged in a bun, was waiting at the entrance. "Ms. Winters, I'm Margaret Wheeler, Mr. Blackwood's executive assistant. Welcome to the Phoenix Foundation." The name made Sophia freeze momentarily. Phoenix? Yes, Mr. Blackwood's choice. "Something about rising from the ashes," Margaret explained, leading her inside. "Did he mention that you'll be starting part-time during your probationary period?" Sophia nodded, taking in her surroundings. The interior was surprisingly cozy, with warm-toned walls and modern but comfortable furniture. Several people worked at open workstations, creating a collaborative atmosphere. "Your desk will be here." Margaret indicated a space next to a large window. "Mr. Blackwood insisted that you have natural light." "Good morning, Sophia." Leonardo's deep voice sounded behind them. He was wearing a casual navy blue sweater over a white shirt, looking more relaxed than at the cafe. "How are the children?" The question took her by surprise. "Fine, thank you. Mrs. Martinez has agreed to adjust her schedule to look after them during my mornings here." "Excellent. Margaret, could you give us a moment?" After the assistant had left, Leonardo lowered his voice. "Sophia, before we start, I need you to know something. The Phoenix Foundation, it's not just a social project for me." He led her into his office, closing the door softly. A photo on the wall caught Sophia's eye. A beautiful woman with red hair and a radiant smile, hugging Leonardo in front of the Eiffel Tower. "My wife, Claire," he explained, noticing her gaze. "She died 5 years ago in a car accident. We were discussing having children when it happened." Sophia felt the weight of guilt in his voice. "I'm sorry." Claire worked with women in vulnerable situations. It was her passion. He ran his hand through the gray hair at his temples. "The Phoenix Foundation is her vision, not mine. I'm just trying to realize what she always dreamed of." The raw honesty of that confession changed something in the dynamic between them. Sophia saw beyond the successful businessman. There was a man carrying his own dose of pain and regret. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to understand that this isn't a philanthropic whim. It's a commitment to the memory of someone who dedicated his life to making a difference." He faced her squarely. "And because I saw in you the same strength that Claire had." The rest of the morning passed in a whirlwind of introductions and orientations. Sophia met the team, social workers, psychologists, lawyers, all seemingly committed to the cause. Between meetings and explanations of ongoing projects, she began to glimpse the real potential impact they could have. During lunch, sitting alone at her new desk, Sophia picked up her cell phone to check her messages. Her heart stopped when she saw an Instagram notification. "Ricardo Martinez has started following you." With trembling fingers, she blocked the profile immediately, but the damage had already been done. The familiar anxiety began to rise in her throat. "Sophia?" Leonardo's voice brought her back to reality. "Is everything all right?" She forced a smile. "Yes, just Checking on the children. He nodded, but his eyes revealed that he wasn't convinced. You know, we've installed one of the best security systems in the city here. Cameras, guards, access control. Our employees and their families are protected. The implicit message was clear. He knew she was carrying her own ghosts. Sophia felt a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. Thank you, Leonardo. When she left the office that afternoon, Sophia was emotionally exhausted. On her way to pick up the children, she stopped at a red light and allowed herself to cry, not from fear or sadness, but from an emotion she couldn't name. Perhaps it was hope. In his mansion, Leonardo watched through the window as Sophia's Toyota disappeared around the bend. He picked up his phone. Frank, I need you to run a full background check on a Ricardo Martinez, and keep a discreet eye on Ms. Winters and her children. Any suspicious activity, let me know immediately. He looked at Claire's photo again. I won't fail you this time, my love. I promise. Autumn was fast approaching, and with it, Sophia was beginning to find her rhythm at the Phoenix Foundation. 3 weeks had passed since her first day, and she was gradually developing a routine that balanced work, children, and her constant worries. On that particular morning, Sophia was poring over a pile of documents on her desk when Olivia Chen, the foundation's chief lawyer, approached with a worried expression. Sophia, I need your opinion on a case, Olivia said, placing a folder on the table. We have a woman, 28 years old, 2 young children. She wants to leave her husband, but he controls all her bank accounts and is threatening to take the children away from her. Sophia felt her stomach turn. The story was painfully familiar. Does he have a history of physical violence? Not that we can prove, but the psychological abuse is obvious. Olivia lowered her voice. She's afraid even of her own shadow. As I was, Sophia murmured, almost without realizing it. What did you say? Nothing. Sophia straightened up in her chair. She needs a well-structured escape plan, important documents, emergency cash, a safe place to stay that he doesn't know about. And above all, we need to ensure legal protection before she takes any steps. As they discussed strategies, Sophia noticed Leonardo watching them from his office. Over the last few days, she had noticed how he paid special attention when she spoke in meetings, as if each word carried a particular weight. The phone on his desk rang. Sophia, can you come to my office? Leonardo's voice sounded tense. As she entered the office, she immediately noticed the change in his posture. He was standing, looking out of the window, his shoulders stiff. Close the door, please. He turned around, holding out a manila envelope. Sophia, I need to ask you a few questions, and I ask you to be completely honest with me. The familiar fear began to settle in his chest. About Ricardo Martinez. Leonardo pronounced the name as if it were poison. Your ex-husband. Sophia felt the blood freeze in her veins. How? He was here this morning, trying to get through the main gate. He claimed to be your husband and wanted to surprise you. Leonardo opened the envelope, revealing surveillance photos. Our security guards stopped him, but it forced me to do some investigating. Sophia sank into the nearest chair, her legs shaking. He found me. Why didn't you tell me about the threats? About the custody proceedings he's trying to bring? Because, Sophia fought back tears. Because every time I trust someone, I end up losing something. Ricardo has a gift for manipulating people, for making everyone believe that he's the victim. Leonardo approached, sitting down in the chair next to her, not at his imposing desk. Sophia, I need you to understand something. The Phoenix Foundation is not just a job. We're a family here, and we protect our family. You don't know Ricardo, she whispered. He has connections. He knows things about important people. That's how he's always gotten away with it. And you think he has something on me? Leonardo asked softly. Sophia nodded, embarrassed. Let me tell you something about me that Ricardo will never find in his investigations. Leonardo picked up Claire's photo from his desk. The night Claire died, we had a terrible fight. She wanted to adopt a child, start a family. I was only focused on the empire I was building. I said horrible things. I was cruel. His voice faltered. She drove off in the rain, upset. The accident happened 10 minutes later. Sophia noticed how her hands trembled slightly as she held the photo. I carry this guilt every day, he continued. The Phoenix Foundation isn't just about helping other people, Sophia. It's about redemption. My redemption. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand that we all have our ghosts, our regrets. but we also have a choice about how we let it define us. He put the photo back on the table. I'll be blunt. I've hired a private security team to protect you and the children, and the best lawyers in town are prepared to take on any lawsuit Ricardo tries to file. Sophia felt the tears finally fall. I can't accept. I'm not asking for your permission, Leonardo said firmly. I'm informing you of a decision by the Foundation to protect a valuable employee. At that moment, Margaret knocked on the door. Mr. Blackwood, sorry to interrupt, but Sophia has an urgent call from the twins and school. Panic seized Sophia immediately. She rushed to her desk, answering the phone with trembling hands. Mrs. Winters, the principal's voice sounded worried. There's been an incident. A man tried to pick up the children, claiming to be their father. Mrs. Martinez refused to let him approach, but he became quite aggressive. The police were called. Sophia dropped the phone, her world spinning. Leonardo, who had followed her to her desk, picked up the handset. This is Leonardo Blackwood, from the Phoenix Foundation. I'll send our security team to the school immediately. Don't let anyone near the children other than Mrs. Winters or Mrs. Martinez. He hung up and turned to Sophia, who looked like she was about to collapse. Get your things. I'll take you there myself. On the way to school, as Leonardo drove his Audi at high speed, Sophia finally verbalized her greatest fear. What if he manages to get them away from me? He won't, Leonardo replied, his voice laden with an iron determination. The time for Ricardo Martinez to terrorize you and your children is over. Now he's going to find out that he messed with the wrong people. The afternoon sun cast long shadows over the city, and as they hurried to school, Sophia felt, for the first time in years, that she was no longer alone in her battle. But with this realization also came a new fear, the price Leonardo might pay for getting involved in her private war. Sunshine Valley Elementary School was surrounded by 3 police cars when Sophia and Leonardo arrived. Her heart raced at the sight of Mrs. Martinez sitting on a bench in the playground, Aurora and Phoenix clinging to her like frightened little koalas. "Mommy!" the twins shouted in unison, running towards her as soon as they saw her. Sophia wrapped them in her arms, breathing in the familiar scent of their hair, feeling their little hearts beating fast against her chest. "Él está loco, Sophia," Mrs. Martinez said, coming closer with tears in her eyes. "Ricardo, he's not the same man anymore." Leonardo watched the scene a few paces behind, his face a mask of controlled concern. 2 men in dark suits, part of the security team he had mentioned, were already positioned discreetly nearby. "Miss Winters?" A policeman approached, notepad in hand. "We need your statement about the incident." Sophia reluctantly let go of the children, who immediately turned to Leonardo, much to his surprise. Phoenix, especially, seemed fascinated by the tall man in the suit. "Do you work with Mommy?" Phoenix asked, his curiosity momentarily overcoming his fear. Leonardo knelt down so that he was level with the twins. "Yes, I do. And part of my job is to make sure you and your mother are safe." "Like a superhero?" Aurora asked, her big eyes shining with childlike hope. A genuine smile, the first Sophia had ever seen, lit up Leonardo's face. More like a friend, a resourceful friend. While Sophia gave evidence, recounting the painful story of abuse and running away, Leonardo entertained the children with stories about a dog he had as a child. It was a surreal scene, the powerful businessman sitting on a bench in the playground, with 2 little ones hanging on his every word. "Sophia," Leonardo called out when she had finished with the police, "you can't go back to your apartment today. Ricardo has obviously found out where you live." "But where?" she began, but he gently interrupted her. "My house has a completely independent guest wing, 24-hour security, cameras, the whole system I mentioned. It's temporary, until we find a permanent solution." "Leonardo, I can't—" "Mom," Aurora interrupted, tugging at her sleeve. "I'm afraid to go home." Those words broke Sophia's last resistance. "All right," she agreed, looking at Leonardo, "but only for a few days." "Mrs. Martinez," Leonardo turned to the elderly woman, "I'd like you to come too. The children need familiar faces at the moment." The move was organized with military efficiency, while Leonardo's security team collected essential belongings from Sophia's apartment. She tried to remain calm in the face of the neighbors' curious stares. The guest wing of the Blackwood mansion was larger than her entire apartment. 3 spacious bedrooms, a cozy living room and a small kitchen, all decorated with understated elegance. This is just a temporary arrangement, Leonardo explained as he showed off the accommodation. Tomorrow, we'll start looking for a suitable and safe place for you. Later, after the children had finally fallen asleep in their new beds, Sophia found Leonardo in the mansion's main library. He was on the phone, his voice tense. I don't care what it costs, Frank. I want everything. Financial records, political connections, every skeleton in Ricardo Martinez's closet. Yes, including that incident in Boston that he tried to cover up. He hung up when he noticed her. Can't you sleep? How could I? Sophia approached the shelves of old books. Leonardo, I need to understand. Why are you doing all this? He was silent for a long moment, contemplating the glass of whiskey in his hands. When Claire died, I realized that I had spent my whole life building walls. Wealth, power, influence. They were all ways of keeping me away from people, of not getting emotionally involved. Sophia watched as the light from the lamp played with the shadows on his face. Your story, your children, he continued, reminded me of something Claire always said. True power lies not in how much you can accumulate, but in how much you can protect those who need it. But Ricardo is dangerous, Sophia insisted. He has connections with powerful people, compromising information. Sophia, Leonardo interrupted her gently. I'm one of the richest and most influential men in the country. I have much more dangerous enemies than Ricardo Martinez. The difference is that, for the first time in 5 years, I've found something worth fighting for. A noise in the corridor interrupted them. It was Phoenix, standing in the doorway in his dinosaur pajamas. Mom, I had a bad dream. Sophia went over to him, but before she could pick him up, Phoenix ran over to Leonardo, surprising everyone by hugging his legs. Are you really going to protect us from the bad man? He asked, his small voice trembling. Leonardo knelt down, his eyes level with the child's. With everything I've got, little warrior. It's a promise. Sophia watched the scene with a squeezed heart, realizing that something fundamental had changed. It wasn't just about protection or safety. It was about family, about healing old wounds and creating something new from the ashes of the past. Outside the mansion, the autumn night was taking its course, and somewhere in the city, Ricardo Martinez was planning his next move, unaware that he had aroused not only the wrath of a powerful man, but also the determination of a woman who would no longer run away. The first week at the Blackwood mansion established a surprisingly comfortable routine. Mornings began with the aroma of coffee prepared by Mrs. Martinez in the small kitchen of the guest wing, while Aurora and Phoenix explored the estate's protected gardens in fascination. On that particular morning, Sophia was watching the children from the window of her new office at the foundation, when Olivia Chen hurried in carrying a red folder marked confidential. Sophia, we need to talk, Olivia said, closing the door. Frank found out something about Ricardo that you need to see. Her ex-husband's name still caused a tightening in her chest, but Sophia had learned to mask her fear. What have you found? Olivia spread out the documents on the table. Ricardo isn't who he says he is. His business empire, it's a front for money laundering. He's been working for a criminal organization for years, using front companies to move illicit money. Sophia felt the air escape from her lungs. How did I miss it? He's good at what he does, Olivia continued. But he made a mistake in Boston 3 years ago. A murder was covered up, but Frank found the original evidence. Murder? The word came out as a horrified whisper. A woman called Rebecca Collins. She worked in accounting for one of his companies and discovered irregularities. She was found dead in her apartment, apparently of natural causes. But the office door opened, interrupting them. Leonardo entered, his face more tense than usual. Sophia, we need to talk. In private. Olivia quickly collected the documents and left, casting a meaningful glance at Sophia. Ricardo made contact, Leonardo said without preamble as soon as they were alone. He wants to meet with you. No. The answer was instantaneous. He threatened to expose information about Claire's death. Sophia felt her heart stop. What? Leonardo ran his hand through his gray hair, a gesture she already recognized as a sign of extreme concern. Apparently, he's discovered details about the night of the accident that could complicate things for me. Leonardo. Sophia stood up, approaching him. What really happened that night? He turned to the window, his back stiff. I wasn't just arguing with Claire about adoption. She had discovered some irregularities in the company's business. questionable transactions that I had authorized in order to keep certain investors happy. Oh, Leonardo. She threatened to blow the whistle, he continued, his voice breaking. That's why we fought. And now Ricardo has somehow gained access to old emails between Claire and her lawyer. Sophia processed the information slowly. So that's why you're helping me. To protect yourself. No. He turned sharply, his blue eyes intense. I'm helping you because I saw in you and your children a chance for redemption. A chance to do what I couldn't do for Claire, protect someone who really deserves protection. At that moment, a high-pitched scream cut through the air, coming from the gardens. Sophia rushed to the window, her heart racing as she saw Phoenix lying near the swing, Aurora screaming for help. They ran into the garden, finding Mrs. Martinez already consoling the boy who was clutching her arm with tears in his eyes. He fell off the swing, Aurora explained tearfully. I told him not to go so high. Leonardo was already on the phone, calling his private doctor, while Sophia hugged her son, whispering words of comfort. At the private hospital, hours later, Phoenix was asleep with his arm in a cast. Aurora nestled next to him in a hospital bed that was too big for two small children. It was only a slight fracture, the doctor assured him. He'll be brand new in a few weeks. Sophia was watching her children sleep when she felt Leonardo next to her. Do you know what Phoenix said to me while they were putting the plaster on? He asked softly. He said he was trying to fly, like a superhero to protect you from Ricardo. The tears Sophia had been holding back finally fell. They shouldn't have to worry about that. They're just children. That's why we need to put an end to this once and for all, Leonardo said, his voice determined. I'm going to find Ricardo. No. Sophia grabbed his arm. We'll find him. Together. It's too dangerous. It's more dangerous to go on living in fear. She looked at her sleeping children. Phoenix tried to be a superhero today. Maybe it's time we showed him how real heroes act. By facing their fears head on. Leonardo watched her for a long moment. You're stronger than you think, Sophia Winters. I learned it from my children, she replied, a small smile appearing on her lips. And maybe I've also learned from a certain stubborn millionaire who refuses to give up on me. Outside the hospital room, night was falling over the city. Somewhere, Ricardo Martinez was waiting for an answer, unaware that he was about to face not only an ex-wife who was no longer the frightened woman he had known, but also a man determined to right the wrongs of his past. And in the shadows of the hospital corridors, Frank, Leonardo's private investigator, was receiving yet another crucial message about Ricardo's past, information that would change everything the next morning. The Café Le Petit Jardin, where Sophia and Leonardo had first talked, was practically empty on that rainy autumn afternoon. Through the fogged-up windows, Sophia watched the raindrops slide down the glass, each one seeming to carry the weight of her apprehension. He'll be here in 10 minutes, Frank informed her, sitting discreetly at a distant table. 3 other security guards were strategically positioned around the establishment, all in plain clothes. Leonardo adjusted the tiny microphone hidden in the collar of Sophia's blazer. Remember, you don't have to say anything other than what was agreed. At the slightest sign of danger, I know, she interrupted him gently, touching his hand. But we need his confessions on tape. The last 24 hours had been intense. After the night in hospital with Phoenix, Frank had brought the most shocking revelation yet. Rebecca Collins hadn't been Ricardo's only victim. There had been a pattern of women disappearing after crossing his path over the last 5 years. He's here, Frank murmured through the communicator. Sophia felt her heart race at the sight of Ricardo entering the cafe. He looked exactly as she remembered. Tall, well-dressed, with that smile that had once charmed and then terrified her. Sophia, he said, taking a seat opposite her. You look different. 3 years can change a person, Ricardo. Or maybe it's the company of your new protector. His smile didn't reach his eyes. How is our friend Blackwood? Still tormented by his wife's mysterious death? Sophia kept her composure, remembering the plan. Why are we here, Ricardo? Straight to the point, then. He leaned forward. Very well. I want my children, Sophia. And this time, there's nothing you or your millionaire can do to stop me. And why now, after 3 years? Maybe I've realized my mistakes. Maybe I want to be a better father. His smile widened. Or maybe I just want to see Blackwood lose something precious, just as he's about to lose everything he's built when I expose the truth about Claire. How did Rebecca Collins lose her life? Sophia asked abruptly. Ricardo's smile faltered for a moment. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. Just as you know about Amanda Peters, Julia Martinez, no relation to you, of course, and Caroline Weber, all killed in the last 5 years, all connected to your companies. Are you accusing me of something, Sophia? Her voice was dangerously soft. I'm telling you that I know who you really are, Ricardo. And it's not just the murders. It's the money laundering, the cartel connections, everything. Interesting theory, he replied, leaning back. But you know what I know? I know that Claire Blackwood didn't die in a simple accident. I know that her precious Leonardo was involved in dirty dealings, that she threatened to expose him, and that she conveniently died before she could do so. Like Rebecca, accidents happen, darling. His smile was now predatory. Just like they can happen to you and our children if you don't cooperate. Sophia felt a chill, but kept her voice steady. Are you admitting that you killed all those women? I'm admitting that I do what's necessary to protect my interests. He leaned closer. And now? My interest is in destroying Leonardo Blackwood and taking back what's mine. The twins were never yours. You never cared about them. No, but I care about what I can do with them. Ricardo smiled. Imagine how much it would destroy you and Blackwood. To see your precious children growing up under my watch, learning to hate you. Enough. Leonardo's voice cut through the air like a blade. Ricardo turned, surprised, to find not only Leonardo, but also 2 police detectives who had silently entered the cafe. Mr. Martinez, one of the detectives said, you are under arrest for the murder of Rebecca Collins and for confessing to multiple murders. Confession? Ricardo laughed. I haven't confessed to anything. Your every word was recorded, Sophia said, removing the microphone from her collar. Even your threats against my children. Ricardo's face contorted in fury. In one swift movement, he tried to grab Sophia, but Leonardo was already between them. The sound of fists connecting echoed through the cafe, and Ricardo staggered backwards, blood dripping from his nose. You're not going to hurt anyone anymore, Leonardo said, his voice shaking with restrained anger. The detectives handcuffed Ricardo, who was still smiling despite the blood. This isn't over, Sophia. You know I have connections, and as for you, Blackwood, we still have that matter about Claire to resolve. No, we don't, Leonardo replied calmly. Because unlike you, I've already confessed to my crimes. The SEC is already investigating Blackwood Enterprises' questionable transactions with my full cooperation. There's nothing you can use against me that I haven't exposed myself. Sophia watched as Ricardo was led away by the policeman, her heart pounding wildly. Only when the cafe door closed behind them did she allow her legs to give way. Leonardo caught her before she fell. It's over, he whispered. You did it. You stood up to him. We did it, she corrected, the tears finally falling. But what about you? Your company? Companies can be rebuilt, he replied, holding her face between his hands. What matters is that we did the right thing. Claire would be proud. Outside, the rain was starting to ease, and a faint ray of sunshine broke through the clouds. Somewhere in the city, Phoenix and Aurora played safely in the Blackwood mansion, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded, but somehow knowing that something fundamental had changed. And there, in the little cafe where it had all begun, Sophia and Leonardo remained embraced, 2 souls scarred by the past but finally free to build a future. The news of Ricardo Martinez's arrest was all over the morning papers. Businessman accused of multiple murders. Criminal empire dismantled. Magnate Leonardo Blackwood involved in financial scandal. The headlines multiplied like autumn leaves in the wind. Sophia watched the headlines on her tablet while Phoenix, her arm still in a cast, tried to convince Aurora to sign her cast for the 3rd time. But I want to draw a bigger dinosaur this time, he insisted. You've already got 5 dinosaurs there, Aurora replied, rolling her eyes in the way that only a twin sister can. The sound of their voices was a balm for Sophia's nerves. After the confrontation with Ricardo the day before, she had spent the night in a state of sleep, going over every moment, every word exchanged. The reality that her ex-husband was not only an abuser, but a serial killer, still made her tremble. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Margaret, Leonardo's assistant. Sophia? Mr. Blackwood would like to see you in the main library. Important. The walk to the main library of the mansion had never seemed so long. Sophia found Leonardo sitting in his favorite armchair, papers spread out on the antique mahogany desk. He looked like he had aged a decade in a day. "The lawyers have just left," he said, gesturing for her to sit down. "The SEC is being thorough in its investigation." "How long?" "To process everything. Months, probably. But I've already agreed to temporarily step down as president of Blackwood Enterprises." He ran a hand through his gray hair. "The good news is that the Phoenix Foundation is protected. I set up an independent board weeks ago anticipating this." Sophia felt her heart squeeze. "Why didn't you tell me you were planning to turn yourself in?" "Because I needed to convince Ricardo. He needed to believe that he had power over me." Leonardo stood up and walked over to the window. "Besides, that's what Claire would have wanted. It's what she tried to do to me 5 years ago. What happens now?" Leonardo turned to face her, his blue eyes carrying a mixture of determination and vulnerability that she had never seen before. Now we start to rebuild. And," he hesitated, "there's something I need to show you." He walked over to a safe hidden behind a painting, a cliché that made Sophia smile despite the tension, and pulled out an old folder. "This is the last project Claire was working on before the accident." He handed Sophia the folder. It was her dream. Sophia opened the folder and felt her breath catch. It was a detailed project for a support center for women and children victims of domestic violence. The plans included temporary housing, legal, psychological, and professional support. Claire had identified a perfect plot of land on the outskirts of the city, Leonardo continued. She planned to use part of her personal inheritance to start the project. "Why are you showing me this now?" "Because I want you to do it." He sat down next to her. "The Phoenix Foundation has the resources, and you have the lived experience and heart that Claire always said was necessary for a project like this." "Leonardo, Sophia began, but was interrupted by a noise at the door. Phoenix and Aurora were standing there, watching the scene with curious eyes. "Mr. Leonardo," Phoenix called out, timidly entering the library. "Can I ask you a question?" "Of course, little warrior. When the bad man left, you said that now we could be a real family. What does that mean?" Sophia felt her heart stop. She hadn't heard that conversation. Leonardo looked at her before answering, his eyes silently asking for permission. She nodded slightly. "It means, Phoenix, that if your mother allows it, I would like to be a part of your lives. Not just as a friend or protector, but as someone who loves you and wants to help you create a better future." Aurora approached, her eyes shining. "Like a father." "Aurora," Sophia began, but her daughter interrupted her. "But he already acts like a father, Mom. He protects us, tells us stories, and yesterday at the hospital, he kept holding your hand the way Emily's father does with her mother." Sophia felt her cheeks burn, remembering the moments of vulnerability shared the night before. "It's true," Phoenix added, "and he has a dog now. Did you see the puppy that arrived this morning, Mom?" "What puppy?" Sophia asked, confused. Leonardo looked slightly embarrassed. "I may have adopted a Labrador from the local shelter. I thought the children would like a friend to play with while they recover from all this. You adopted a dog without consulting me. Technically, it's my dog," he replied with a half smile. "But yes, maybe you should have asked first." Sophia couldn't help but laugh. There he was, the mighty Leonardo Blackwood, looking like a little boy caught stealing cookies. "Well?" Phoenix asked, his voice full of hope. "Can we be a family?" Sophia looked at the anxious faces of her children, at Claire's project in her hands, and finally at Leonardo, who was watching her with a mixture of love and apprehension that made her heart soar. "I think," she replied softly, "that we already are." The sound of happy barking echoed down the corridor, and moments later, a golden puppy burst into the library, running straight towards the children. Mrs. Martinez appeared soon after, panting. "Lo siento. He escaped when I was changing the water." Watching her children laugh as they played with the puppy, Sophia felt Leonardo intertwine his fingers with hers. "You were right," she whispered, "about rebuilding, about starting again. We have a lot of work ahead of us," he replied. "The foundation, the support center, my legal situation. One day at a time," Sophia added, squeezing his hand. "Like a family." Outside, the golden leaves of autumn danced in the wind, and the afternoon sun painted the library in shades of amber. It was a new chapter beginning, not just for Sophia and Leonardo, but for everyone their lives touched. And somewhere, Claire was smiling. Autumn gave way to winter, and 3 months had passed since Ricardo's arrest. The Blackwood mansion, once a symbol of isolation and mourning, now pulsed with new and unexpected life. That December morning, Sophia was in the Phoenix Foundation office, going over the last details of the support center project, now officially named the Claire Center, when Olivia walked in with an enigmatic smile. "The building permit has been approved," she announced, placing a folder on the table. "We can start construction as soon as the snow melts." Sophia picked up the documents with trembling hands. The land Claire had chosen years ago would finally be used for its original purpose. "How's the Leonardo process going?" "Better than we expected. His voluntary collaboration with the SEC is making a difference. Most of the questionable transactions were technicalities, not outright fraud." Olivia hesitated. "But there's something else you need to know. It's about Ricardo." Sophia felt her stomach turn. "What happened?" "He was found dead in his cell this morning." The silence that followed seemed to have a weight of its own. Sophia leaned back in her chair, a storm of contradictory emotions raging across her face. "How?" "Apparently suicide, but—" Olivia lowered her voice. "Frank found out that he had started to make a deal with the prosecutors. He was about to reveal the names of powerful people involved in the money laundering scheme." Before Sophia could fully process the information, she heard familiar laughter coming from the hallway. Aurora and Phoenix rushed into the office, followed by Max, the Labrador who had practically doubled in size since their arrival. "Mom, look what we did at school." Phoenix, now free of her plaster cast, held up a colorful drawing. It was an adorable, albeit anatomically questionable, representation of her new family: Sophia, Leonardo, the twins, Mrs. Martinez, and Max, all under what looked like falling snow. "It's beautiful, my love." Sophia smiled, quickly putting the documents away on Ricardo. "Where's Leonardo?" "Here." The deep, familiar voice sounded from the doorway. He looked tired, but his eyes sparkled at the sight of the children. "I've just left a meeting with the Foundation's board. We have some news." "Good or bad?" Sophia asked, noticing a subtle tension in his shoulders. "It depends on your point of view." He moved closer, absent-mindedly stroking Max's ears. "The board wants you to take over as president of the Phoenix Foundation." Sophia blinked, certain she had heard wrong. "What?" "It makes sense," Olivia interfered. "You've been managing practically everything for the last few months, while Leonardo deals with the legal issues. And your personal experience brings a perspective that no corporate executive could offer. But," Sophia looked at Leonardo, "what about you?" "I'll still be on the board, but—" He smiled softly. "Claire always said that the foundation needed to be led by someone who truly understood its mission. I can't think of anyone more appropriate than you." Aurora, who had been surprisingly quiet, tugged on Sophia's sleeve. "Does this mean you're going to be the boss, Mom?" "I think so, dear." "Cool," Phoenix exclaimed. "Now you can boss Leonardo around too." The laughter that followed broke the tension of the moment. Leonardo feigned an expression of comic horror. "Hey, I thought we were partners in this." "Actually," Sophia said, getting up and approaching him, "we're more than that, aren't we?" His eyes softened, understanding the deeper meaning of her words. Over the last few weeks, their relationship had evolved naturally, as if their hearts had known from the start that they were destined to heal each other. "Children," Leonardo called out, his voice taking on a serious tone that immediately captured the twins. "Attention. Can I ask you an important question?" Aurora and Phoenix exchanged curious glances before nodding. "What would you think if—" He took a deep breath. "If I officially asked to be part of your family? Forever." Sophia's eyes widened when she saw Leonardo kneel down and take a small velvet box out of his pocket. "Sophia Winters," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "You taught me that family is not just about blood ties, but about daily choices of love and commitment. You and these children brought light back into my life when I thought I would live forever in the shadows. Would you do me the honor of—" "Yes," Aurora shouted, jumping up and down in excitement before he could finish. "Aurora!" Sophia scolded, but couldn't hold back her laughter. "Let him finish." "Sorry," the girl mumbled, but her smile was radiant. Leonardo smiled and continued. "Sophia, will you marry me?" The ring was simple and elegant, a delicate solitaire that sparkled in the winter light coming through the window. But it wasn't the ring that made the tears run down Sophia's face. It was the expression of pure, vulnerable love on Leonardo's face, mirrored in the hopeful faces of their children. "Yes," she whispered, and then louder. "Yes." The office erupted in celebration. Phoenix and Aurora jumped and screamed. Max barked happily, and Olivia discreetly wiped tears from the corner of her eyes. When Leonardo slid the ring onto her finger, Sophia noticed a small inscription inside. From the ashes, we are reborn. It's the motto of the Phoenix Foundation, he explained softly. It seemed appropriate. At that moment, with her children hugging them and the winter sun creating golden halos through the window, Sophia fully understood the meaning of those words. From the ashes of their broken pasts, a new life had blossomed, stronger, more beautiful and infinitely more precious for having been forged through pain and overcoming. Outside, the first snowflakes of winter were beginning to fall, covering the world in a white blanket of renewed possibilities. Spring had arrived in Riverside Heights, bringing with it not only the blooming of flowers, but also the bustle of wedding preparations. The Blackwood mansion, already transformed by the presence of the children, was now buzzing with an even more special energy. On that particular morning, Sophia was in the master bedroom of the guest wing, looking at the wedding dress hanging on the closet door. It was elegant in its simplicity, an off-white satin model with delicate lace details. Aurora never tired of admiring it, dreaming of modern fairy tales. "Mommy," her daughter's voice brought her back to the present. "Can I ask you something serious?" Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, pulling Aurora onto her lap. "Of course, my love. When you marry Leonardo, will we be able to call him Dad?" The question, so innocent and yet so profound, made Sophia swallow. "Do you want to call him Father?" Aurora played with the hem of her dress thoughtfully. "Sometimes, when he reads us stories before bed, or when he helps Phoenix with his math homework, it feels like he's already our father. Not like," she hesitated, "not like Ricardo. Different. Different how? Like in the movies. You know, when the father hugs you tightly and makes you feel safe, and laughs at your jokes even when they're not funny." Sophia felt tears forming in her eyes. Before she could answer, she heard a soft knock on the door. It was Mrs. Martinez. "Sophia, dear, Leonardo wants to talk to you in the winter garden. He says it's important." With a kiss on Aurora's forehead, Sophia headed for the winter garden, a magical space where Leonardo had started growing orchids, a hobby he found therapeutic during his most difficult months with the SEC. She found him among the flowers, looking both nervous and determined. "We need to talk," he said, gesturing for her to sit on one of the wrought iron benches. "About Ricardo." Sophia felt her heart squeeze. In the 3 months since her ex-husband's death, she had deliberately avoided thinking too much about the subject. "Frank has finished his investigation," Leonardo continued. "It wasn't suicide. I suspected it," Sophia admitted. "From the circumstances, it was ordered by someone powerful, someone Ricardo was about to expose." Leonardo ran his hand through his hair, a gesture that Sophia now recognized as a sign of deep concern. "And there's more. Among the documents he left, there was information about Claire." Sophia held his hand, feeling him tremble slightly. "She didn't die because of our fight that night," he continued, his voice breaking. "She discovered the same criminal connections that Ricardo was about to reveal. The accident? It wasn't an accident. Oh, Leonardo. For years, I carried the guilt, believing that my actions, my stubbornness, had caused her death. But the truth is even worse. She died because she was trying to do the right thing." Sophia stood up, wrapping her arms around him as he finally allowed the tears to fall. "Frank wants to keep investigating," he said after a few moments, "to find out who's behind it all, but you're afraid," Sophia added softly. "Afraid of history repeating itself. If something happened to you or the children." "Hey," she held his face between her hands. "Look at me. We're not Claire or Ricardo. We're not alone in this fight. The wedding," he began, but Sophia interrupted him. "The wedding will take place in 3 days, exactly as we planned. I'm not going to let fear define our future, Leonardo. We've lived like this for long enough." Just then they heard laughter coming from the garden. Phoenix and Aurora were playing with Max, their hair shining in the spring sunshine. "Did you know that Aurora asked me today if they can call you Dad?" Sophia said softly. Leonardo looked surprised. "And what did you say?" "I haven't answered yet, but I think you should have this conversation with them." He watched the children for a moment, his eyes softening. "You know, when Claire talked about having children, I always imagined how inadequate I would be as a father, that I'd repeat my own father's mistakes, the emotional distance, the obsession with work. And now, He smiled, watching as Phoenix tried to teach Max a new trick. Now I understand what Claire meant about unconditional love. It's not something you learn, it's something you just feel. Sophia intertwined her fingers with his. Then go on. Talk to them. Leonardo hesitated only for a moment before walking towards the garden. Sophia watched as he approached the children, as they immediately ran to hug him, as his face lit up in a way she had never seen before. Mrs. Martinez appeared at his side, offering him a cup of tea. Love has many forms, mi amor. Sometimes we need to lose something precious to learn to appreciate what fate brings us later. Sophia nodded, sipping her tea as she watched her family, yes, her family, laughing and playing in the spring garden. In 3 days, she would marry Leonardo. In 3 days, they would make official what their hearts had known for months. But in that moment, watching him with the children, Sophia understood that some things are deeper than papers or ceremonies. Family, after all, is about daily choices of love, about rebuilding from the ashes, about finding light even in the darkest moments. And as the spring sun bathed the garden in golden hues, Sophia knew with absolute certainty that they had made the right choice. The wedding day dawned with a peculiar clarity, as if nature itself was conspiring to make the moment even more special. The gardens of the Blackwood mansion had been transformed into a modern fairy tale setting, with white and lilac flowers decorating every available surface. Sophia was in her room, watching her reflection while Mrs. Martinez put the finishing touches to her hair. Aurora, already dressed as a bridesmaid, kept twirling around in her lilac dress. "Mom," she said, stopping suddenly, "can I tell you a secret?" "Of course, my love. Last night I heard Leonardo in his office. He was talking to Claire's photo." Aurora moved closer, whispering, "He was thanking her for sending you to us." Sophia felt her heart squeeze. Mrs. Martinez discreetly wiped away a tear. "And you know what?" Aurora continued. "Phoenix and we've decided that we're going to call him Dad today during the ceremony. It's a surprise present." Before Sophia could reply, Olivia entered the room, looking stunning in her bridesmaid dress. "It's time, and..." she hesitated. "Leonardo asked me to deliver this." It was a cream envelope, in his elegant handwriting. "My Sophia, exactly 7 months ago, you walked into Magnolia's Coffee and changed my life forever. On that day, I was a man living in the shadows of his own past, carrying guilt that wasn't mine, fearing a future that seemed empty. You, Aurora, and Phoenix taught me that family isn't something we lose or gain. It's something we build, day after day, with love, patience, and, sometimes, a bit of chaos, and a very energetic Labrador. Today, before we met at the altar, I went to Claire's grave. I left white roses, her favorite, and told her about our family, about how Aurora has the same gentle smile, even though I've never met her, about how Phoenix has her stubborn determination, and about how you, my beloved, have the strength to face the darkness and find the light. Claire always said that the universe has a plan greater than our understanding. Today, I finally understand what she meant. I await you at the altar, not just as your future husband, but as a man eternally grateful for this second chance to love. With all my heart, Leonardo." Sophia could barely read the last words through her tears. Mrs. Martinez quickly began to touch up her makeup, muttering something about impossible men who make brides cry before the ceremony. The garden was full of guests when Sophia finally came downstairs. Soft music filled the spring air, and flower petals danced in the gentle breeze. Aurora and Phoenix were waiting at the beginning of the decorated aisle, holding the rings and a basket of petals. When the wedding march began, Sophia felt her heart almost stop when she saw Leonardo at the altar. He looked elegant in his tuxedo, but it was his watery eyes that captured her attention, eyes that spoke of love, promise, and a bright future. The twins began their walk down the aisle, scattering petals with a comic seriousness that drew smiles from the guests. Then it was Sophia's turn. Each step towards the altar seemed charged with meaning. In the front rows, she saw familiar faces from the Phoenix Foundation, women who had found hope through their work, families who had been rebuilt from the ashes. When she reached the altar, Leonardo took her hands, and the world seemed to disappear around them. The celebrant began the ceremony, but before he could get very far, Phoenix stepped forward, tugging lightly on Leonardo's jacket. "Father," he said, his voice small but clear, making everyone's heart stop for a moment. "Can I tell you something?" Leonardo knelt down to him, tears flowing freely now. Aurora joined her brother. "We wanted to give you a present," Aurora explained. "The best present we could think of. We want you to be our father, not just today, but forever." The guests discreetly tried to dry their tears as Leonardo hugged the children. "You are already my children," he whispered. "In my heart, from day one." The celebrant, visibly moved, sniffled. "Well, I think we can continue with a small change. We're not just uniting two people today, but making a family official." The ceremony continued, all the more meaningful for its simplicity and raw emotion. When it came time for the vows, Sophia and Leonardo opted for simple, honest words. "Leonardo," Sophia began, "you taught me that sometimes we need to break ourselves completely to discover our true strength. I promise to be by your side in every reconstruction, in every moment of doubt, in every conquest. I promise to be your partner, your friend, your confidant, and I promise to remind you every day that love is stronger than any shadow of the past." "Sophia," Leonardo replied, his voice breaking, "you and the children are the miracle I didn't know I needed. I promise to honor the trust you've placed in me, to be the father Aurora and Phoenix deserve, and the companion you need. I promise to protect our family with every fiber of my being, and never ever let fear stop us from living fully." When the rings were exchanged, and the kiss sealed the union, the garden erupted in applause. Max, who had managed to escape from his designated nanny, ran down the aisle, barking happily, completing the family scene. During the reception, while the guests danced and celebrated, Sophia found a quiet moment with Leonardo near the orchids in the winter garden. "Happy?" he asked, hugging her from behind. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied, watching Aurora teach Phoenix to waltz, both of them laughing at their own stumbles. "You know," Leonardo said softly, "Claire always said that true love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who helps you be the best version of yourself." Sophia turned in his arms, touching his face gently. She was right, as always. And there, under the evening sky, with the sound of laughter and music in the background, they shared another kiss, no longer as bride and groom, but as husband and wife, as parents, as partners on a journey that had only just begun. Night fell softly over the Blackwood mansion, now truly a home, where love had finally found its permanent place. The Clare Center opened its doors on a sunny autumn morning, exactly 1 year after Sophia and Leonardo's wedding. The modern building, with its soft lines and welcoming gardens, seemed to perfectly capture the essence of the project, a place of renewal and hope. Sophia was in her office in Centro, organizing the last details for the opening ceremony, when she heard familiar laughter in the hallway. Aurora and Phoenix, now 6 years old, were running around chasing Max, who, even though he was no longer a puppy, retained his characteristic energy. "Children," Leonardo called out, entering the office. "What did we agree about running in the corridors?" "Sorry, Dad," the twins replied in unison, but their mischievous grins indicated that the rule would soon be broken again. Sophia watched the scene with a smile, her hand unconsciously resting on her slightly protruding belly. 4 months pregnant, a surprise that had filled the Blackwood mansion with even more joy. "The press have already started arriving," Leonardo informed her, coming over to kiss her forehead. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous," she admitted, "but it's good nervousness. Claire deserves it." The Clare Center wasn't just a shelter for women and children in vulnerable situations. It was a complete complex, offering temporary housing, legal assistance, psychological support, daycare, and professional training programs. Claire's dream, expanded and realized by Sophia. "Mom," Aurora called out, holding up an envelope. "I found this on your desk. Is it from Uncle Frank's investigation?" Sophia took the envelope, exchanging a meaningful glance with Leonardo. Over the last few months, Frank had continued to investigate the circumstances of Claire's death and the criminal connections Ricardo had uncovered. "Yes, dear. These are important documents." "About the bad people who hurt Aunt Claire?" Phoenix asked. The children had developed a special connection with Claire's memory, often asking questions about her and leaving flowers on her grave. "Yes," Leonardo replied softly, "but we don't need to worry about that today. Today is a day of celebration." The unveiling ceremony was emotional. Dozens of people gathered in the center's garden, including several women who had already been helped by the Phoenix Foundation. Sophia, standing on the small makeshift stage, looked at the faces in the crowd before beginning her speech. The Clare Center was born out of a promise, she began. A promise made by an extraordinary woman who believed that everyone deserves a second chance. Claire Blackwood dreamed of a place where broken people could rebuild, where fear would give way to hope. Leonardo, sitting in the front row with the twins, held Aurora's hand who, as always, cried easily at emotional moments. But this center is also born of another promise, Sophia continued. The promise we make to each other when we choose love over fear, when we choose to trust even after being betrayed, when we choose to rebuild even when it seems impossible. She paused, meeting Leonardo's eyes. A year ago, I was lost, trying to protect my children from a dark past. Today, I stand before you, not only as the director of this center, but as living proof that transformation is possible, that from the darkest ashes the most beautiful flowers can be born. Mrs. Martinez, sitting next to the twins, discreetly wiped away tears with her embroidered handkerchief. The Clare Center will be more than a shelter. It will be a place of rebirth, where every story of overcoming will inspire others, where every smile regained will be a victory shared. After the ceremony, as the guests circulated around the center, Sophia found a quiet moment in the therapeutic garden, a special space designed with orchids, in homage to the hobby that had helped Leonardo through his most difficult times. "Penny, for your thoughts," he said, coming up behind her and hugging her. "I was thinking about how unpredictable life is," she replied, leaning back against him. 18 months ago, I was serving coffee and fearing for my children's safety. Now you run one of the largest support centers in the country. You're expecting our baby and you've turned a grumpy old man into a doting father," he added with a smile. "You were never grumpy." She laughed. "Just complicated. How's our little Claire?" he asked, stroking her belly. "Her." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Since when are you so sure it's a girl?" "Since Aurora solemnly announced at breakfast that she'd had a dream where she was playing with her little sister." "And since when do you believe in dreams?" Leonardo turned her in his arms, his eyes shining with love and amusement. "Since a brave barista came into my life and proved that the most unlikely dreams can come true." The twins ran up to them, followed by Max, breaking up the romantic moment with their laughter and endless energy. "Dad," Phoenix exclaimed, "can we show you our special present now?" Leonardo nodded, and the children ran inside, returning moments later with a covered painting. When they discovered it, Sophia felt tears fill her eyes. It was a collage of photos, moments from the last year captured in pictures. The wedding, the children playing in the garden, Sophia pregnant, Leonardo teaching Phoenix to swim, Aurora looking after the orchids, Mrs. Martinez cooking with the twins, Max in various comic moments, and in the center, an old photo of Claire, smiling radiantly. At the bottom of the picture, in childish letters, was written, "Our family, from ashes to stars." "It's to put here in the center," Aurora explained, "to show that families can be different but still perfect." Sophia hugged her children, feeling the baby move in her belly, as if it too wanted to take part in the moment. Leonardo wrapped them in his arms, and for a moment, the world seemed perfectly aligned. In the sky, the first stars of dusk were beginning to shine, and a gentle breeze swayed the orchids in the garden. The Clare Center was officially open, ready to be a beacon of hope for others who, like Sophia one day, needed to believe that new beginnings are possible. And somewhere, Claire smiled, knowing that her dream had not only come true, but had blossomed beyond her most optimistic expectations. If you could rewrite your own happy ending, as Sophia did, what cycles would you need to break today? What fears would you need to face? And, most importantly, who would be your Leonardos? Those people willing to fight alongside you on this journey of transformation. Leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.